Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, new characters and foods, familiar faces visit the Haunted Mansion.
The Tiki Room turns 60, San Fransokyo updates, we talk with Ken from the SweepSpot, and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Howdy, partners! For your safety, remain seated with your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast. And be sure to watch your ears. If any of you folks are wearing hats or glasses, best remove them, because Tag and Teresa have the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of June 28th, 2023. I'm Teresa Urban.
And I'm Lynn Barron.
Thank you to Julia M., Steph E. for becoming an official weekly tier on our Patreon. Our supporters get some pretty fun perks like DL Weekly swag, bonus content, and access to our Discord community. A special thank you to Carrie M., Walt H., and Matthew J. for your continued support. If you would like some more Disney magic in your day, head on over to dlweekly.net/support to join the community. Well, we all know vacations are supposed to be stress-free experiences, so start that early on with your next Disney vacation by getting in touch with Concierge, the official travel partner of DL Weekly. You know you can't go wrong with your family's Disney vacation with the team at Concierge because they're full of Disney families. They'll treat you like part of their family and work to give you the best Disney vacation, whether it's in one of the parks, on a cruise ship, or with Adventures by Disney. Take advantage of the one-stop shop that's no additional charge for you.
Now let's get to the news.
Rogers the Musical will be taking center stage this weekend. The classic tale is filled with heroes and time travel to tell the story of Steve Rogers. Disney has announced that there will be a virtual queue to join through the app. You can join the virtual queue at 10:30 a.m. or 2 p.m. Walk-up viewing is available, but it's highly recommended that you join the virtual queue.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your feelings about Rogers the Musical?
I'm actually excited about it. I don't know why. And I'm going to try to go this Saturday, the 1st. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. DL Weekly listeners probably don't know this, but Lynn told me last week he's going to Disneyland this weekend. Very exciting.
If you want to find me somehow on social media and you want to meet up, I'll have buttons.
Perfect. And it's just at the SweepSpot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For Instagram. So follow Lynn at the SweepSpot on Instagram. And maybe you'll see him wandering around the parks. You can get yourself a SweepSpot button.
Yep.
I'm very curious to hear your review on Rogers the Musical after this weekend. I've been kind of hesitant because I was hoping for something, not this. Like I was hoping, if I were in charge of the parks and entertainment, I would have done like Coco or something.
Yeah.
Like just amazing and beautiful. Basically, whatever the new Aladdin was going to be, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So this one just feels a little weird to me because I'm just nervous about what it's going to be. I think it was a really fun thing when they introduced it in Hawkeye, and I think it was really hilarious that they brought it to the stage at D23.
Yeah.
But I also kind of think it's something that like super fans know and most general public may not understand whatsoever. So that's what I'm wondering about. How that's going to work.
I think they're doing it for two reasons. It's a filler for summer, and maybe to get more locals to go to DCA. And also I think it's something the fans, like you were saying, the ones that know, were really asking for. So they're like, okay, we'll do it, but it's only going to be for this time.
I just think it's going to be really interesting. Sadly, I will not get to experience it myself because of the limited run. I want to say it only runs through the end of August. Mm-hmm. I'm not planning to be back in the parks until October. So I will not get to see this one firsthand. So hopefully somebody out there takes a really good YouTube video so I can at least watch it secondhand that way. I know it's not the same. But the link that we have in our show notes from the Disney Park blog, they actually show a little kind of sneak peek or like a behind the scenes clip, and you can see some of the different set pieces and whatnot. And for a limited run show, I was actually pretty surprised at how elaborate some of those set pieces look.
Yeah, I was too. It's good. They haven't had a show in there since before
I
the closures,
know.
right? So
Yeah, there
it's
hasn't been
been
anything since spring of
three,
2020, which is
3 years.
wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a
So
beautiful theater. So yeah, I'm glad they're doing something.
yes, exactly.
Along with the new entertainment, new foods are coming to DCA. There's a good variety of sweet and savory eats to enjoy. The foods are themed to Captain America.
I thought this was hilarious that for this short run thing, there's a ton. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different things that you can try that kind of are themed to kind of promote the new show at the Hyperion Theater. So there's everything. There's a Captain Everything dog at the outdoor vending carts. That actually looks good. It's a hot link wrapped in pizza dough tap with everything bagel seasoning and served with a side of mustard, cheese sauce, and potato chips.
Yeah.
There's over at Terran Treats. It's called Like an Apple Pizza Pie, but it's a cinnamon sugar fried pizza crust topped with apple and cranberry filling, streusel, and cream cheese frosting. Were there any items that kind of caught your eye, Lynn?
Maybe the shake.
The red, white, and blue shake at Schmoozies.
Yeah, I like shakes. So
There
yeah,
you
that
go.
sounded good.
Yeah, that one's it's layered, and it's a vanilla shake with wild cherry and blue raspberry slushies topped with whipped cream. Ooh,
Yeah.
I don't think I read that part that it had the ice cream with slushy.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That'd be interesting. I'm also curious about the Patriotic Punch, which is over at the Hollywood Lounge. Sprite and white cranberry juice with blue raspberry and cherry syrups, topped, of course, with whipped cream, because apparently all superhero drinks are topped with whipped cream.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And then the other
sounds good.
thing I thought was fun was that there's kettle corn at some of the outdoor vending carts, and it's red, white, and blue caramel corn. So that sounds pretty tasty, too. Anything you think you'll try this weekend?
Maybe I will just for this show.
There you go.
We
You
don't
can report back.
We don't talk about a lot of food on the sweep spots. Maybe I will do it for this show.
You'll do it for science.
I'm doing it.
I suppose if I need to eat some tasty treats,
Yeah.
I guess you can twist my arm. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, Nick Fury has been spotted in Avengers Campus. In this all-new interactive experience, he will be recruiting guests to practice in the art of espionage. Well, later this month, another familiar face will be joining us at the parks. Indiana Jones will be coming to Adventureland. Both of these fun meet and greets are for a limited time only.
That's so cool. Indy over there.
The Indy one, I don't know why, I was kind of surprised about that. Nick Fury, I wasn't as surprised of because it seems like they've been doing a lot of synergy. We just had the new show Secret Invasion debut on Disney Plus, and that new Marvel show features Nick Fury. So that made sense that he showed up the day that
Yeah.
first episode dropped. But we really haven't seen, the live action Little Mermaid Ariel came to the parks, but it's kind of newer for Disneyland to get these promo characters right as these films are premiering. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was excited.
It almost surprised me in a way. Now that I think about it, that why didn't they have Indy all along? Because Adventureland doesn't really have any characters.
No, previously with Tarzan's Treehouse, you'd have Tarzan, and sometimes Moana would meet and greet back there too.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing it way back, you would have the Aladdin show that's now no longer. That little, was it like a dinner show?
Yeah, then they had a storyteller, like a
storytelling
time
show. Yep.
Yeah.
And that was over by the Tiki Room where the Tropical Hideaway currently is now. But yeah, you're right. There are no meet and greet characters currently in Adventureland.
I would think it'd be popular, and if it is something that's really popular, maybe they'll keep it longer.
Yeah. The one thing I'm wondering, he's got to be a walk-around character because there's not really a good stationary spot that they could have him in, like have guests queue up in.
Maybe the Fast Pass area for Indy.
That's a good point.
It's kind of dark in there. But,
it is, and it depends on. They'd have to. I think that's being used for strollers right now.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm curious.
Yeah.
You'll have to report back if you see him
I
this
will.
weekend.
I'm going to try for the show.
Yes. We're making you do all these terrible things. No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah, that would be cool. Well, starting this Friday, June 30th, you will be able to find some fun foods items to help celebrate the Dial of Destiny over at Bengal Barbecue. You can sneak your teeth into 4 new items, including a lamb kofta, a skewer, vegetable platter, adventurer's platter, and the forbidden turnover.
I don't know why, but I just love that, the forbidden turnover. It's kind of like an oxymoron to me, like jumbo shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
Like forbidden just sounds so like daring and like doom and gloom, and then it's a turnover. It's a very innocent treat. But dang, Lynn, I am getting like, as we're doing this show, I'm getting more and more jealous of your trip because there's so many cool. Did you even know all these cool things are dropping this weekend as you were booking this trip? Because man, there's a lot of really neat things. Look, there's more food you're going to have to try.
I know,
for the podcast. But the Bengal Barbecue is one of my favorite places to eat, anyways. So I was really excited that they're getting some new menu items. The thing that stood out the most to me was the adventurer's platter. It looks like it comes with 2 skewers, a side of like seasoned rice, but then also like a cold like couscous salad, which looks delicious.
They don't have a picture of the forbidden turnover though. So
the forbidden turnover, for the link in the show notes, it's a thing at the top. It looks
that's
like
a turnover?
That's a turnover. It's a very, very, very fancy turnover because it's forbidden.
Maybe not.
But I haven't seen a description as to what it is. So is it like fruit filled or, what is it? So we'll find out. But everything looks really delicious. Really delicious.
I may have to try something.
Good luck choosing.
Yeah.
Well, construction scrims are coming down around San Fransokyo Square, and it's getting closer to making its debut. Disney Parks blog put together a wonderful article with beautiful new concept art showing off the Maker's Market, Aunt Cass's Cafe, and Rita's Turbine Blenders. Starting mid-July, new menu offerings will be available at Lucky Fortune Cookery, and the Cerveceria will be open. The area will still have current favorites as well as new creations inspired by Asian cuisine, as well as the Big Hero 6 characters. They teased that a foodie guide is coming soon, but they didn't say when, and I'm really excited to see what the new menus look like.
Yeah, they didn't really have a lot of details for this, and now things are finally starting to come out with that.
I did also see that soon the San Fransokyo Bridge will be closed to guests because they're going to be finishing that off. So if you're planning a trip to the parks, just beware that bridge may be closed and you're not able to go over it. You can still enter the San Fransokyo area, or well, I guess technically it's still called Pacific Wharf. You can still enter this area through Cars Land, and then also there's another entrance that's over towards the Boudin Bakery Tour and Ghirardelli. You can still enter, exit that way, but you can't use that big now red-orange bridge because they're going to be installing the final pieces. So heads up for those of you visiting the park soon. But yeah, I'm just really excited. I think this area, this was a surprise to me when they announced that they were going to be retheming this area, and I feel like I contradict myself. I have weird, mixed feelings about the French market becoming an IP-themed thing. But this, for some reason, I think really makes sense. And I think it's because, well, A, I'm not as emotionally attached to DCA. But B, I feel like most of DCA has already had the IP makeover. So it's not as jarring to me. Right. But this made a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's probably more IPs at DCA than there is Disneyland for sure. Seems like it.
It feels that way. I haven't actually counted to see if that's the case or not. And I think that's just because Disneyland originally didn't have, I mean, yes, there were IPs present, but not quite to the extent that it has today. And we still have things that aren't IP related, because I still will argue that the Haunted Mansion and Pirates, I don't call those IPs because the movies came after the attraction versus like this San Fransokyo. Obviously, that the San Fransokyo existed in a movie before it existed in the parks.
I guess
I'm excited.
The one thing that surprised me was that Big Hero 6. I saw it once and I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. So when they announced it, I thought, okay. I mean, I don't know.
I think theming wise that it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah.
You know, it makes a lot of sense. And it's a fun way. I do love Baymax though. I don't know what it is about that crazy inflatable healthcare companion.
Yeah.
But he's so cute and funny. And there was a meet and greet in Walt Disney World with him. I can't recall if he's ever actually been to Disneyland or DCA. So I do think it's fun that he's finally coming to DCA and that he's going to have his own permanent meet and greet location because he's just such a fun character. He's kind of like Stitch, where it's just like a very lovable character.
Did they say when this was is it mid-July? It sounds like
mid-July. Yeah. So a lot of the scaffoldings come down. So a lot of the painting and the theming on the buildings is finished. Aunt Cass's Cafe is still behind scaffolding, and then of course the back corner where the beer truck used to be, that's got a bunch of scaffolding because that's where the Makers Market and or the meet and greet for Baymax is going to be. So that's kind of all new. So there's still some construction walls up, but the majority of it is coming down. So
the
other thing that I'm looking forward to is they're going to have, from the movie, I don't know if you remember this, they have these like big wind turbines that look like fish, and they're going to have some of those in the area too. Specifically, there's going to be one on top of Rita's. I think it looks like a koi fish, but I think that's going to be really fun. Yeah. A really fun visual, and if they make them actually spin and move, that'd be even cooler. Yeah,
that'll be nice. Well, Jamie Lee Curtis, Owen Wilson, and Lakeith Stanfield were all spotted in the parks last week promoting the Haunted Mansion film. They were all dressed in the iconic Haunted Mansion cast member costumes.
Yeah, this was fun. And they were like right at the mansion. So if you were a guest visiting the mansion, you could have been walking right past this famous trio promoting the new film. I know that Jamie Lee Curtis is our new Madame Leota, and Owen Wilson and Lakeith Stanfield are both new, like they're newer characters. I can't remember what their character names are, but yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about the new Haunted Mansion movie, and how did you feel about the original Haunted Mansion movie?
I'm a little worried about it just because of the past.
Yes.
I did enjoy the first movie they had with Murphy.
Eddie Murphy.
I did enjoy the one with Eddie Murphy, but there was parts I didn't. I didn't like that it was more humor than, like, I always think it should be more like a mystery, you know, like the movie Clue. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That I always visioned that type of movie. And so I'm a little, I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little bit worried, but we'll see. I think the cast is good. You can't go wrong with a lot of these names that are in there.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking this one might be more mystery than humor. I did have a realization. I think I've talked about this on the podcast, but the first time I watched the Eddie Murphy version, I was upset. I'm like, what did they do? My favorite parts of it were the little Easter eggs of things from the attraction. So when they, like, you see the hitchhiking ghosts and like all the little Easter eggs are my favorite part for obvious reasons. But other parts of the storyline, I was like, what did they do here? This is just weird. Well, I watched it again recently. I gave it a second try years later, and it dawned on me it was intentional, because if you took Eddie Murphy and the humor out of it, it was a dark and terrifying movie, because you had like kids getting like grabbed and taken into the crypts by these like skeleton things. You know, it was very, very scary without the humor. The humor kind of like balanced the dark and scary out a little bit to make it a better family type movie. Otherwise, I think it would have been much too scary for me personally, and probably for kids too. So I'm curious what they're going to do here. I think there's going to be a little humor because of Owen Wilson, but I don't think it's going to be
over the top.
I don't think it's going to be over the top. I think it's going to be a better balance between the scary and the humor this time around. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, hopefully the Muppets Haunted Mansion, I really enjoyed that. So hopefully
Yes.
that's a little indication of their thinking on this. I don't know.
I do feel like the powers that be, I don't know if it was specifically Disney or what, but I think a lot of people felt that they needed a redo at the Haunted Mansion movie because there was a ton of excitement, and it like we were just saying, for us, it just kind of fell for the fans. It didn't hit like everyone was hoping. I'm excited about this just because of what I've seen in the trailer. It looks really
I like the way it looks. I will say one thing about, I mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis here. I actually spoke with her once. I was working in the Esplanade, and I was just sweeping along, and I, you're looking down because you're sweeping, and this was early in the morning, and I hear this good morning like that, and I looked up, and I'm like, oh, that's Jamie Lee. She said, I said, oh, good morning. She said, have a good day, and I said, yeah, you too. So that was cool because she didn't have to do that. So that kind of maybe think, you know what, she's pretty cool. So
that is really cool because you're right. She could have just silently walked on by and just kept to herself. So that's really cool. I like it when you find out that these celebrities, you kind of get these ideas in your head of what they must be like. But I think it's really neat when there's interactions and stories like that where it's just, they're just normal people. They just happen to star in movies as their career, but they're still down to earth. Some of them, obviously not everyone, but some of them are still just down to earth, kind of more normal than you would have assumed. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, the Tiki Room turned 60 this past Friday. To celebrate, special photo ops were available for guests outside of the attraction, as well as some celebration stickers. There were new pins available for purchase as well. These pins look cool. One of the pins was a set, and it was of the 4 macaw hosts, 4 individual pins of the hosts. One was, it was like in a tiki style, and it was just 60. So it was a tiki style with elements of the Tiki Room kind of in it. And then the other was, who was the other one? It was one of the birds. Now I'm not remembering which.
Do you know if they're still available or
I would
not?
think so. In my experience, they release them the day of the anniversary, maybe leading up to the anniversary. Oh, it's the Barker bird for the third one. That's who it was, not Jose. They release them, or they release them right before the anniversary, but then they're available for a limited time. So I would assume they'd still be around this weekend.
Okay. Do you think that they would be at that pen shop in Frontierland?
I would think they'd be there, and the other place I would assume they would be is on Main Street, that little pin shop near the magic shop. Usually these are ones that you have to, they won't be hanging on the wall. They'll be ones that are behind the counter with the cast members. Another place that I found these special release pins is actually the little curio shop in Carsland, of all places. I would not have known or thought to look there, but there's a ton of pins in that little newly opened shop too. So that would be, if it were me, that'd be where I would look.
I'm gonna seek these out.
You're gonna seek them out. Which one's your favorite?
Oh, I don't know. They're all so cool. The first one with all of them, the 4 different little ones.
Yeah, the 4.
That's neat.
Macaws.
I don't know. They're all cool. Maybe I'll get all of them.
The cool thing is I can't quite tell from this photo on the host macaws, so you're going to have to report back. But the other two definitely, for sure, the one that is just 60 with a bunch of tikis and flowers and stuff like that. That's representing the 60th anniversary. And then the one with the Barker bird, way down at the bottom, there's 3 little flowers, and the middle flower has 60. So they're specific to 60 years of the Tiki Room. I'm curious though if the macaws have little 60s on them too to celebrate the anniversary. You'll have to report back.
I will, for sure. I have to make notes of all these things I have to report
You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to bring a little notepad and be like, did I try all of the new Avengers themed, Captain America themed foods? Yes, okay, check. Did I see India? Yes, okay, check. Did I?
My son's gonna
you
be.
You didn't realize
Dad.
You had such a long list, did you?
I know. My son's gonna be, Dad, what are we doing? You've eaten so much.
There, that's perfect. You have somebody to share the things with. So
that's true. Yeah. With a flurry of projects happening around the resort, we wanted to take a couple minutes to give you the refurbishment calendar. So currently under refurbishment, I'll say that 3 times fast. We all know about Tarzan's Treehouse and the French Market changeover, and that comes along with the Mint Julep Bar. Some of the stuff at DCA, but I wanted to mention Peter Pan's Flight, June 5th to the 29th. So that one's interesting. It's kind of well, this whole thing is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a little bit.
Fantasyland.
Yeah.
The half of Fantasyland. Yes, it is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alice and Toad are currently back up, but Peter Pan's Flight is still down for a couple of more days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any insider knowledge as to what's going on? We heard rumors that it had something to do with the roof of the building.
That, and I heard some lighting, not to do with necessarily the show lighting, but the building, like,
sure.
What would they call it? Like when they're doing maintenance at night.
Oh,
I can't think of the name at the moment, but yeah, they heard they were redoing some of that in the whole building, and maybe that had something to do with the rain because of the roof, and I don't know exactly, but that's my assumption. Is there's something with that building and as a whole? It seems like kind of an odd time. I mean, summer used to be the time where nothing was closed. But I think we spoke of this last time. It's seems to be changing. Like October and November are very popular times. So I don't know. They had to pick a time, I guess. And
yeah, it has to happen whether we want it to or not, but it needs to happen.
Right. And the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, that's prep obviously for the Villains Grove. The other one I was surprised about was Soaring Around the World, because there is 2 theaters there where they could run one. I know it would slow things down for the line, but I don't know. That's one of the most popular attractions in the park, or probably one of the top 5, I would say. Same with Toy Story Midway Mania.
Well, and the thing that's crazy with Toy Story Midway Mania is that it's going down July 17th. And then the return date's to be determined. So it's that's another really popular, and it's a people eater. For DCA, that's it's a pretty popular attraction. So that's gonna take a hit. It's always just so tough since DCA has fewer attractions when these go down, because then it kind of puts more strain on the rest of the attractions, and then more guests are in those lines. So all the wait times just kind of inflate because of it. But hopefully they're gonna last time when we were there in May, we were at Toy Story Midway Mania. We were going through, and halfway through it was kind of nice because we all got a break with our arms. One of the games, I want to say it was halfway through, didn't work. So we just sat, the ride vehicle went through and all that, but they were having issues with the screen itself. So I wonder if stuff like that is needing a little refresh, and that's what they're focusing on.
Probably.
I'm excited about the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, though. Prep for Villains Grove. I was one of the crazy people. Today is June 27th, so today's when the Oogie Boogie Bash tickets went on sale for Magic Key holders. Totally jinxed myself. I was talking very confidently about, it went so smoothly and so easy last year. No problems. Well, I had a busy day at work, so I didn't jump in the waiting room early like I usually do. So I didn't join the virtual queue until 2 minutes after it opened. And holy buckets, did that make a difference. I've sat in that virtual queue basically all day. And then when it finally came up, the date that we wanted was available. I selected it, but it wouldn't let me check out with it. And I tried several times. And the next thing you know, the calendar changed. And then you were only supposed to be able to be in the checkout screen, I thought, for 10 minutes. Well, 40 minutes later of me sitting there and refreshing the screen, it didn't kick me out, but the availability calendar changed probably 10 times. It was wild. So as of now, as of recording, all of the pre-sale tickets, though, did sell out at, I want to say it was about 5 p.m. Pacific, maybe a little earlier. Maybe it was 4:30 p.m. Pacific. So all the pre-sale tickets are sold out, but have no fear. They only sell a limited number per Oogie Boogie Bash party date today for the Magic Key Holder presale.
Right.
So me, along with all sorts of other people, will be joining the queue again on Thursday, no earlier than 9 a.m. Pacific, to try and get our dates. So we'll see how it goes. Fingers and toes and everything crossed. I'm not worried about it. And today was weird. I feel like it was just a weird, glitchy system day because I don't know why the calendar. We're watching these dogs. That's a Shih Tzu. That crazy gravelly sounding thing's a tiny dog. But I think there was some glitchy stuff happening because I've never seen the availability calendar change as drastically and as frequently as I saw it changing today. It was really, really crazy and really interesting for me.
It's going to get really heated on Thursday.
Yes, it is. Because last year, I want to say I saw somebody report that Oogie Boogie Bash tickets sold out within 3 days. So I'm curious if it was 3 days last year, is it going to be even sooner this year? Because everyone's going to, you know, if you didn't get them last year, you're going to make sure you do it early this year. So I'm curious to see how the whole thing goes. One last thing that I wanted to mention that we reported on a while ago, but I had kind of forgotten about is the Adventureland men's restrooms. Well, those are currently closed. And those are closed because there was a water main break in Adventureland a while back that we had reported on. Well, they're still working on that. And I actually just watched the Fresh Baked update. David did a really nice job. Link is in the show notes for that for everyone. But I just watched the update because I was trying to figure out what was going on, and he was able to kind of, you'll see it, Lynn, because you can't, it's a wall. You walk into Adventureland and there's construction walls because they ripped up the rock work that was in front of the men's restroom there in Adventureland, and they've got all sorts of stuff dug up. It's a huge, huge project. The women's restroom in Adventureland there is still open, but the men's restroom's completely closed. So you're going to have to go all the way to, well, you could go to the Frontierland restrooms over by Rancho. Or I'd probably go to the New Orleans Square ones because those Rancho runs, I feel like, are not very big. That's a huge thing to not have those Adventureland restrooms open because that's a lot of space.
Those restrooms have always had issues. When I worked there, we had a big water problem too, and that was I don't know, probably 20 years ago. But and we had them shut down. They didn't tear apart everything, but they were shut down for a whole day once that happened. And I was the lead on duty that time, and we had to shut everything down, and it was crazy.
Dang.
DL Weekly announces the boarding of the Trivia Express, non-stop star speeder service to the moon of Endor. All passengers, please prepare for immediate boarding.
Welcome to Trivia Land. How we feeling tonight? Do you think you got some great trivia knowledge all up in your heads? You ready to go?
I'm not sure. Last week was a little rough, so we'll see how it goes this week.
I'm ready. I'm pumped up.
You're ready, Lynn?
Lynn's been studying, apparently.
All right. Well, instead of one of my weird deep dives, tonight we are going back into listener-submitted questions. So let's see what the listeners have for you. This one comes from a conversation I had with listener Ruben O. Who is Fluffy, and where can you meet him?
Do you know this, Lynn?
No.
This is a weird one. I feel like I cheated because I was talking with this same person. And it's an interesting one. So I'll give you a hint, Lynn. So the Maleficent Dragon and Phantasmic had a nickname, which was Murphy. There's another animatronic character that has been nicknamed Fluffy in the parks. I'll even be nice and tell you that if I'm correct, this one's in an attraction that was recently refurbished.
Oh, pirates? No,
not pirates.
Oh, I don't know. Recently refurbished? Matterhorn? The Matterhorn?
That's Harold.
That's not fun. Yeah, I don't know. In Disneyland?
In Disneyland.
I'm drawing a blank.
There's we were talking about stuff that's promoting a new movie that there's an attraction for.
Indy?
Yes. Yes. Indiana Jones.
Fluffy, though.
So I believe it's the snake animatronic in Indiana Jones that has been lovingly nicknamed Fluffy. I could be wrong.
It's a terrible name. That's a terrible name.
But I think that's what it is. I think it's a snake at Indiana Jones.
Final answer.
Final answer.
Final answer, the snake in Indiana Jones. All right, your second question from listener Cooper C. In the attic portion of the Haunted Mansion, there is a replica of a Disneyland attraction as soon as you enter the attic. The replica is to your right and a little below the Doom Buggy. What attraction is this?
Do you want to know what's great? This isn't a visual thing since this is a podcast, right? But Lynn and I are on a Zoom call, and we can see each other, and halfway through that question, we both just start nodding like, yes, we know this one. So, Lynn, go ahead. What do you think it is?
Is it the Haunted Mansion house?
That's the Haunted Mansion. That's what I think it is, because there's a little mansion about halfway
like
through.
a dollhouse.
Yes, it's like a dollhouse, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it.
So,
Haunted Mansion, final answer.
the Haunted Mansion is the replica in the Haunted Mansion. Final answer.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Your third
Maybe there's
question.
another one, and I just don't know it, but...
Your third question from listener Donna S. What is the blooming pink springtime trees in Disneyland called?
It's something trumpet. Pink trumpet trees. I don't know if that's the actual name.
We're looking for
I don't know.
actual name.
Okay. That's
Not like the
as good as
full
I've
Latin
gotten.
name.
Is the
I don't
pink-
need the genus and species, but
Pink
but
trumpet trees is all I got.
I don't know the
I
names.
don't know
Yeah. I like your answer. Trumpet.
Pink trumpet.
No, we'll go with that one.
That's as good as we're getting, Vern.
a trumpet tree. Final answer.
That's
All
the
right.
final answer.
Yes.
And your fourth and final regular round question from listener Tara F. Inside Flows, you have seating options spanning several rooms, including Doc Hudson's medical office and museum. There you'll find a display case containing the piston cups won by Doc. How many trophies are in the case?
I don't know if I've ever noticed this.
I have. I don't know how many. I'm going to say 5.
3.
3 and 5, final answers?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And your bonus question tonight from listener Michelle M. What is the name of the ticket taker at Mickey's Main Street Cinema?
Oh, I know this one. It's Tilly.
Yes. Tilly.
Tilly, is that your final answer?
Final.
Yes.
And that would be Tilly?
Yes.
Okay.
Does
All right.
spelling count?
I wanted to be thorough. You both came up with the answer so quickly, I needed something to kill time with.
Hey now. We're feeling good about trivia this week. Don't take that from us.
All right. Well, listeners, how did you do listening at home? How do you feel about how Lynn and Teresa did? Stick around until after the discussion topic, and we can all find out together.
Well, this week we have yet another special guest joining us. We have none other than Ken, who is an author, podcast host of the SweepSpot podcast, and former cast member. Welcome to DL Weekly, Ken. We are super excited to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is wonderful.
This has got to be quite the juxtaposition since you're on that side of the microphone with your current podcast host on the opposite side. I love this. I just love.
I turned around my seat and I'm facing the other direction now. Because,
Exactly.
I'm on the other side of the microphone.
The sweep spot is taking over.
Yes.
That's right.
You're slowly,
one by one.
slowly. This is going to be just a mix matched podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to bring back former co-hosts of the Sweep Spot and just take this thing over.
There you go. There you go. Well, Ken, we're very excited to have you here, and you are well known in the Disney podcast community because the SweepSpot podcast has been around for 10 plus years at this point.
Long time.
12 years, yeah.
Longer than I have, so.
Well, that's awesome. So, of course, the listeners of the SweepSpot podcast know this very well probably already, but could you let our DL Weekly listeners know a little bit more about you? Can you tell us your Disney story? So what got you interested in Disney and or Disneyland?
Well, I was floating off of the coast of Florida, and a cruise ship rescued me, and it happened to be the Disney cruise ship. Now,
dang, what luck!
I grew up with Disneyland being about 45 minutes away if there's no traffic jams, and it was always this magical place in my mind. Loved to go. We went once or twice a year. Then my parents, they had some money set aside for a vacation, but after the vacation, they still had money set aside, and they said, "Hey, why don't we get annual passes to Disneyland? And that way we'll go a lot during that year, and we'll all get sick of it, and that'll be the end of it." Back then, annual passes, this is like 1985, so the adult annual passes were like $100. All that included was parking, admission, and a quarterly newsletter. Didn't include anything else. No discounts. There were no blockout dates. Nothing. No tiers. No monthly payments. No special parties. There's a theory that a certain man has called the importance of being 12. And I was about 12 years old. And his theory is if you get into something like right around that age, it might stick with you. It's right before you just really start getting interested in girls or, that sort of thing. So, well, that's what happened to me. My parents thought this would knock it out of our system. Instead, I latched on to the place. And to be fair, my whole family kept renewing their passes. And I got really into it. And then in 1990, I went to work there. So, and I worked there for 15 years. At the time I started working there, my goal was to become an Imagineer. I even went off and created my own major at the university to head for that goal. I interned for the largest independent design firm for theme parks at that time, and I graduated with a degree, and I didn't end up going to work for Imagineering. Interviewed twice at Imagineering, didn't get it. I guess I just don't know how to talk. And in retrospect, I don't think I could handle the instability. So, because when I first got interested in it, most of the people who worked there, it was a career. Mm-hmm. And these days, it's more of a per project basis. So, in the meantime, I got a real job and eventually quit Disneyland. And eventually, Lynn brought me on to the SweepSpot podcast, and then we started writing books. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot of stuff I'm skipping over because, as you can imagine, it's, all those years.
Well, I wanted to rewind a little bit because you had mentioned 12 years old. Okay. So
yeah,
when you were a pass holder, was there anything that influenced meeting a certain person or any event that influenced you to become an Imagineer even more than maybe you already did?
What an oddly specific question.
I know, right?
I'm not sure which came first or if it happened simultaneously. Mm-hmm. But since I was getting to know every nook and cranny of the park that a guest could, and one of the pivotal things that I talk about frequently on our podcast is the Disney Gallery opened above Pirates of the Caribbean, and that was just fascinating to me. Now, the Disney Showcase space on Main Street before the Disney Gallery had a model of Splash Mountain. And, I was a pass holder when Captain EO premiered and then Star Tours. And I thought, wow, so Splash Mountain is the next big thing for Disneyland. It's another mountain, the mountains were when you're 12 years old, 13 years old, 14, the mountains at Disneyland are the big things, Matterhorn, Space Mountain, Big Thunder. So here was Splash Mountain. It was going to be a new ride. And I just became totally obsessed with it, followed the construction as closely as I could. Back in those days, no internet, no social media, no smartphones. So basically what you had was your own two eyes visiting the park, whatever they put in the quarterly pass holder newsletter. And there was also Disney News Magazine, which I think was quarterly at the time. And there were a couple of fan publications. There was one called The Storyboard that actually covered it. But information was scant. You might have a newspaper article here and there. So it was just a matter of where we could find the information. There was the book Disneyland, The Inside Story, with Randy Bright as the author. And they had a picture of Splash Mountains, the model, and some information about it. So I studied the Storyboard magazine issue, studied Disneyland, The Inside Story. All I really knew is what they had in that, and the model, of course, studied the model. But from that, could recognize Tony Baxter as the Imagineer involved in the project. And my friends and I had some neighbors that would go with us that became pass holders, and we would go watch the construction and stuff like that. And one day in early 1989, we saw some people standing around there, and one of them was Tony Baxter. And the first thing we said to him was, we watched, they dispatched them in a log from the dispatch, and they were passing by that one part of what's now the queue, what used to be the queue. It'll be the queue again. But we leaned over and we said, hey, are you Tony Baxter? And he looked up and said, yeah. You have to understand, this is before Disney Channel specials and Disney Plus with him. And I said, oh, well, hey, we're big fans of yours,
It's probably like, what?
And a week or two later, or whenever it was, because we would come down like Fridays after school or on, Sundays. And it was I'm sure a Friday, and saw him again standing around talking with some of the guys next to the attraction, and said, oh, hi, and I said, someday I want to become an Imagineer. And he said, I certainly hope you can stand the frustration. And because he was working on, Splash Mountain had a delayed opening, and they were going through all sorts of trouble. I was either 16 or almost 16 at this point. The third time we saw him, and he was him and Bruce Gordon and a few other people, and because Bruce Gordon was the show producer for the attraction. The third time we saw them down there, I talked with them for quite a bit. It was a long conversation, but the fourth time we saw them, something extraordinary happened. But probably don't want to hear about that.
Oh, no, of course. Why would we want to hear about the extraordinary thing?
Next question.
I don't know. I feel like this whole story is just is amazing. So, okay.
Okay, so you twisted my arm. The fourth time we saw him and the other guy, we saw him and Bruce Gordon. It was actually, we got down there and they were cycling logs, and it turned out it was just a Friday evening, and it was going to be, they were basically going to have cast members get their previews. This wasn't testing. This was general cast member previews. Mm-hmm. And back then things were a lot less formal than they are now. So a lot of cast members were coming around and hanging out, and they were trying to get the attraction running for that. And there was a barricade set up from the exit to the backstage gate. So there's a little path from the backstage gate to the exit, and security guard there and everything. And we saw Tony and Bruce come on stage from the backstage area and head towards the exit. And, we said hi to them a little bit and stuff like that. And eventually Bruce Gordon said, we're going to try to get you guys on tonight. It's me and my neighbors. And it was just like, what? because this has been something I've been obsessing about for a couple of years. And when you're 16 years old, that's a long time. And at one point, he said it was like about 7:00. The park was going to close in a couple hours, but he said, "Come back at 8." And we said, "All right." So we're like, come back at 8. We got like an hour to kill, That's the longest hour of our lives. What we did is we went over to the Disney Gallery, and I think Splash Mountain's model was up there at the time. When we were, they had a whole room with the models and concept art. So we're up there just kind of nervously pacing around, looking at stuff, looking at our watches, and eventually we went back. And we're hanging out because they're trying to get things growing, and cast members are lining up inside the attraction and stuff like that. And the security guard sees us. He goes, you guys should go do something else. You're just, and we said, oh, we're just waiting for somebody. And he goes, oh, well, it could be a while. And at that point, Bruce Gordon comes out and he motions with his finger, come over here. And the security guard's like, what? So we're like, we're so excited. And, this is like it was like after 9:00 at this point. What they didn't want is for us to be sent out of the park because I think it was closing at 10, I think.
Sure.
So we go in there, they have us there at the exit. What I didn't know at the time was Tony had told anyone else in authority around there that he said that I was the son of one of Disney's vice presidents because at the time Disney kept, increasing their ranks of executives, and everybody was getting the title of vice president. So he figured no one's going to know the difference if I say, oh, he's some vice president's kid.
Yeah.
And no one's going to question it. And that I didn't know at the time, but it was just funny because nobody did question why are these kids here? Because I was the oldest one. My neighbors were, 3, 4, 5 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. And eventually it comes around where, they're getting it cycling. Tony tells us, okay, what you're going to see is like the rough cut of a film. It's not done yet. This is June 16th, 1989. And he gets in a log and gets dispatched. And then we get, a couple logs later, we get in, it's Bruce Gordon and us. Bruce Gordon's riding in the back of the log. Mm-hmm. So we get to take our first ride with the show producer. Wow. And it was log 47, which is not the same log 47 they have now because they've changed the logs. It was log 47, and it was at 9:36 p.m. we got dispatched. And
I love that you know all these details still. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Well, it was just, it's not scoring 4 touchdowns in the final season of I'm no Al Bundy, but but it was such a great memory. And, we didn't want to celebrate until we actually took the drop because I didn't, until we hit drop 5, we were counting the drops because we knew it had 5 drops. And, we knew the names of the scenes and all this sort of thing, but it wasn't until we went down Chickapin Hill that, we were satisfied that we had done it, and so we were just thrilled beyond belief. Mm-hmm. And we departed off of there and rejoined my parents on Main Street, and it was just such a thrill and the culmination of quite a long time of waiting, watching the construction, trying to just get everything that we could from the limited information that was out there. And we kept in touch, we kept in touch with Tony and Bruce, and I even would call up. Somehow, I must have talked with Dave Fighton at some point. He was a guy who did he was programming the animatronics. Mm-hmm. I used to call him up with questions. And that was fun. Just they sent us a press packet and some goodies, some really rare stickers and things like that. That was fun. A few other things I won't say on the air, but
talk about a core memory, though. Wow.
Yeah, that was talk about making a kid's dream come true, and that
times like a million. I mean, that you've got to be one of the few people in the world that had an experience like that. Because what are the odds that you befriend Imagineers that are, the head Imagineers on a project to the point that they invite you, but in this day and age, that'd be unheard of. There's no way you're getting on that attraction before opening day. So that's just, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Sign a million waivers and all that sort of thing.
Exactly. That too. And NDAs and all sorts of...
Yeah. I mean, it was a cast member thing, and we were there. They opened for good June 29th. That was when they started soft openings just on a continuous basis. We were there for that. And we were also the grand opening day, July 17th, of course, Disneyland's birthday. We were there and right there in the front of the line for that. That was fun. So yeah.
I want to kind of go back because you said that Tony mentioned that when you wrote it that first time that it was basically like a rough cut. So what was the difference from what you saw and experienced that day versus what opening day was?
I don't think there were a lot. I think there's plenty more I think they wanted to do they never got to do, I think. Gotcha. Is what well, of course, one of the things that people know out there is the burrow scene had the two mothers, the rabbit mother and the possum mother, lamenting to their kids right before you reach the buzzards or the vultures. Originally, they were singing "Sooner or later that rabbit is going to come home." Oh, sooner or later that rabbit is going to come home. He's learned his lesson again. I'm not sure exactly when they changed it. I don't know if it was there for opening day, but they changed it to, stay away from the laughing place, and much more ominous.
Yes, yeah.
So that was changed. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I know a lot about the attraction.
No kidding.
The history of the attraction, the specifics of the attraction. We've talked about it on our own podcast quite extensively. If anyone wants to go find episode 17 of the SweepSpot, when I wasn't yet the special guest star. I was just I was just a guest, and so we talked about that in episode 17.
I was gonna say I've already learned new things because I didn't realize that there were 5 hills because I'm too busy being soaked to count them. That's one new thing that I just learned.
Drop 2 and drop 4 are very small. But they are drops. Obviously, they're numbered. So
yeah. I
mean, if you ever heard the attraction come back from a breakdown, because we would the first summer we just we had done everything else in the park a million times. So what we would do is we would get in line, and then we would get on the ride, and then we'd go right back and get in line again. There was no fast pass, there was no Genie Plus. You just waited in line. There were no single rider lines. You just waited in line. And we would do it over and over and over again. And we would even wait through breakdowns if they would let us. And what they would do is they would go back and reset everything, resetting station approach, resetting finale approach, resetting drop 5, reset. So you would always go back. You would hear drop 5 and you'd hear about drop 4 and so the drop 2 and drop 4 are really small, but in recent years, they could still get you pretty wet because that's something a lot of people didn't know is the attraction was adjustable. The splash level was adjustable based on the weather. And really? I think it was automated, but it either broke or they turned it off or something. So then the last few years, you tended to get soaked regardless on the attraction. It didn't used to be that way.
Really? Okay. That makes me feel better because I thought I was a crazy person because I did not remember getting doused. Our last ride on it, head to toe, it looked like I had just gotten out of the shower. That's how bad it was.
It definitely was more. It would soak you more in more recent years. I don't know if they're going to change that
I hope so.
With the overhaul. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice feature to have. If you can adjust it so that it's colder weather and people are staying drier, I mean, that's a great feature to have. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought I was a crazy person and that something had changed. Or that they were filling it more or something. I don't know.
And if you go back, if you look the McDonald's commercial. They had a promotion, I think, in January of 1989, because that's when it was supposed to officially open originally. They had a promotion called Splash for Cash, and you would see some of the differences with the finale splash, and then they used that in the official commercials for Disneyland too, where they cheated. They used the old logs. They didn't even open they had a whole fleet of logs that they scrapped before they opened the attraction. So, and the splash in the commercial is just this big thing from the earlier set of logs, which was one of the reasons the attraction was delayed, was that it was just too wet. But those logs did not have big groove on the front of them. So when they would plow into the water there at the final drop to slow down, and the water would bounce off of them, go up, hit the roof of the cave, and then come right back down on the guests. With the groove on front of them, it would at least divert the water off to the sides, so less would fall back on the guests. But that run out, drop 5 run out, part of the adjustment was that you could just sort of slide across the top of the water and slow down gradually until you get out to the rivers of America. Mm-hmm. But for the commercials, they had it lowered so that you would plow right into the water, big old splash. It looks really good on camera.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I'm just thinking if they wouldn't have gotten the new logs and it was the original logs that got people too soaked. Yeah. If you would have had that plus the last few years with how bad it was, I just can't even imagine. You'd have to be bailing yourself out halfway through the attraction to make sure you didn't sink, probably.
Yeah, the set they scrapped, I mean, they were designed to seat 8 large adults.
Wow.
And so they were big. Mm-hmm. And then the set they opened with was designed for 7 large adults, and then they got rid of those and brought in a newer set, a slightly different seating configuration. But yeah.
Wow. See, I didn't know that either. I knew that there was the original logs, but I didn't know that there were 3 versions of logs now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, forget this. We're just going to talk about Splash and the history of Splash. No.
Well, I was just
incredible.
Did you want to talk about Splash? No.
Thank you. Seriously, though, thank you for sharing all that. That's what amazing, amazing memories. And I just find it so cool that your child self and your friends were brave enough to go say hi to the Imagineers that you saw in the magazines, and that you built this friendship and this relationship with them, so much so that they then gave you the experience of a lifetime and got to preview the attraction. That's amazing. That's really cool.
I know how fortunate I am to have had that connection. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's come back multiple times over the years, and it's just like, I can't repay any of this stuff. What can I do to repay this kindness? And there's nothing I can really do it's just like, thank you so much.
You just made like an incredible first impression that just really resonated. That's so cool though.
So this wasn't too long after you hired into Disneyland as a cast member, custodial. After that, wasn't it? Not like within a year?
Right. Because this all took place, of course, Splash Mountain opened in July of 1989. Mm-hmm. In June of 1990, I became a cast member at Disneyland. It would have been earlier. It would have been spring break, but my family wanted to go visit Walt Disney World. So I said, no, I can't come into work for spring break. And then, then I started in the summer of 1990. It was funny, though, because as in 1989, when my friends and I were waiting in line, we would find in the interior line of Splash Mountain, people have been waiting for, 60, 75 minutes by the time they get there. There was a lot of trash that would get left behind. So my friends and I would kind of collect it all, like the cups and everything. And then we would, when we reached the station, we would throw it all away in the trash cans there. And the cast members, the ride operators who might have rolled their eyes at us because it's like, oh, you guys again, they would see us do that. And they're like, oh, that's really cool, And we said, hey, well, why not? And somebody must have gotten back to casting with that because they stuck me in custodial when I went to work there.
They're like, oh, yeah, he was already doing this for free. Maybe we should pay him for it.
Now I'm going to get paid for it. Yeah.
Wow.
But that was a good thing. Being in custodial was good. There's probably no other entry-level position I would have, operations position I would have wanted there other than custodial. It
seems like there's a lot more freedom with custodial, especially then if you're like an attractions operator, because attractions, they rotate positions, of course, but you're still very limited as to where you're in just this little small footprint of the park compared to custodial, where it's a much, much larger area you get to kind of roam.
Yeah, nothing I did in custodial could possibly, hurt anybody unless I ran over them with an 8-liner trash cart or something. But, it was great. We didn't have to make change for anybody. Didn't get accused of shortchanging anybody. Didn't have to tell anyone they were too short to want to ride. Didn't have to say, expected mothers can't ride. And then it's like, well, I'm not pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Didn't have to deal with any of that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I'm sure with custodial, you probably at points, just kind of blended into the background for the guests. And so there could be days where you're just, quietly doing your thing and just kind of like the best of people watching too, while you're just doing your thing and everyone's having their Disney days around you.
Yeah.
And of course, asking when the 4 o'clock parade or what time was it?
What we would do is we did blend in. You would think people we'd sticking out because our costumes were white, but we would blend in, and then we would hear guests going by, and the guests would be asking each other questions, and then we would slip over and say, "I know the answer to that," and because they'll be, I'm wondering, where's such and such, or where's the restroom, and of course, if they want to know where the restroom is, we want them to know where that is ASAP,
right,
because if they don't know where the restroom is, we're probably going to have a cleanup on our hands. Yeah,
just avoiding that future work for yourself. Makes sense. Well, hard to believe, but we've got a couple more just getting to know you better questions.
Uh-oh.
So when entering Disneyland on your first day of a visit, do you have a way that you typically go? First, we like to start at the, right when you enter, do you go through the left tunnel or the right tunnel under the Disneyland Railroad? And then past that, do you normally hit up Adventureland first, Fantasyland? What's your plan of attack, if you have one?
Usually it'd be the left tunnel, but not always. And it really depends because I did so many visits, so many visits were when it was just me and a friend, or I was going to meet up with people. Very different than going as like a husband and father, where you're just kind of like with the kid. It's like, okay, where do you kids want to go? So if it was just me and I'm going to meet up with some friends, well, things have changed so much over the years. I mean, I used to, one of them I would always see is Rod Miller playing at the piano, which he doesn't do that anymore. But, if he's playing the piano, who else is around there? Because I would know some of the regulars. Got to go visit the Disney Gallery above Pirates of the Caribbean. Can't do that anymore.
No.
But it's really
very expensive to get up there now.
Yeah, so now when it's a matter of, we did some trip reports for some of our Patreon listeners, but recent trips, they were whole day things, which my wife and kids would go, and of course it would be like, we got a rope drop, Rise to the Resistance, gotta do that, got a rope drop, Rise to the Resistance, and then go from there.
So it changes. That makes sense.
What is your favorite attraction?
Well, so many of my favorite attractions are gone.
We can do Yesterland ones too. Why not? There's no rules here.
Well, it's like the trips. I took advantage of being a Disneyland cast member to go out to Walt Disney World, when I could. One time I had 9 days out there, and I spent part of every day at Epcot Center. Not Epcot, but Epcot Center. There's a difference in my mind. But, I loved the original Journey into Imagination, loved Horizons, World of Motion, Spaceship Earth, Cranium Command. I mean, sentimentally, my favorite attraction had to be Splash Mountain, just for sentimental reasons. I enjoyed working in the Indiana Jones attraction because they would have a couple of custodial people assigned to it. That was, after Splash Mountain was done and Toontown was done, that was the next big thing was, Indiana Jones Adventure. And one time I saw Tony's vehicle parked outside. I knew they were testing, and it wasn't open yet. I knew they were testing. And I found a door that was open because a lot of them were locked and protected. And I went in, and they were cycling vehicles, and he says, "Hey, you want to ride?" So I was a cast member by then, so it wasn't like I was a guest, but I got to ride the attraction through with, the show effects weren't going. It was just kind of a testing out the vehicle sort of ride. So Indiana Jones is, one of right up there, but really it would have, for sentimental reasons, it'd have to be Splash Mountain.
I mean, that's what I was feeling, because I'm like, your history with it, just the fact that you followed the builds and all of the details in a time that it wasn't easy to do so, and then the fact, again, that you were this brave kid that said hi to one of the head Imagineers and the show designer and started that relationship. I just think that's so cool.
I even know that if they're probably finding now, as they're going in there and doing work, they're probably finding Diet Coke cans that Bruce Gordon left behind that got walled up in the concrete, so it's just, little things like that.
That's cool.
Wow.
Very, very cool. I just don't even know where to go. Like, I'm just so fascinated by your knowledge and history, your personal history with Splash, that I'm just like drawing a blank as to where to go, because I'm like, this is just like the Diet Coke thing. I would not have known about the Diet Coke cans. That's just so we're all nerds here about that kind of stuff, but that's just so cool. Hopefully they keep some of that stuff in there kind of as an homage, or just as a piece of fun Disney history.
Yeah.
Hidden Diet Coke cans, why not? So let's go back to your cast member days. You got to have a really cool, so not only did you get to preview Splash Mountain, you also got an interesting first look at Indiana Jones. So can you kind of, aside from that first ride through with Tony, what are your other memories of that attraction kind of coming up? Did you follow that one as closely as you did Splash?
Well, it was probably not as closely, but I still was always interested in what was new. So, being familiar with the way things were before, and then being able to see what was happening with construction. I mean, they used to have the side queue for Pirates used to go back quite a ways. Now that space is taken up with the line for Indy. Just some of that stuff and seeing how it was all going to fit together, and it was great to see it. I mean, that's the first one. Toontown, I didn't try to go back and see like everything under construction there. After Splash Mountain, Indiana Jones was really the one where it was just watching it take shape from the ground up, thinking, boy, it always seemed like such a long time before it was going to be something that you could experience. It's like it's so far away. Oh no, and then that finally getting closer and closer and being able to do that. As a cast member, you would have the Disneyland Line newsletter, which would, at the time, it was weekly, and it was actually printed. Always getting copies of that, staying up to date on what's happening.
Super cool. I have to ask this because it was one of the photos that's going to be part of our episode graphic, but it looks like you also got a lot of fun behind the scenes looks at other attractions. So can you kind of talk about those things? And was that you being custodial? Lynn talked last week about the Haunted Mansion and how, as a kind of like a treat, they'd walk through the attraction and do some cleaning while they did that. But what were some of your experiences with unique views of attractions?
Well, see, during operation and also before or after the park's operation, we would do things. Some things you can't do anymore. You get fired if you didn't. Yeah. The state might fine the park, but love to go through if we had time, love to go through the Haunted Mansion at the end of the night. Go through and now, in custodial, our costumes were generally the same wherever we worked in the park. And we used to cover everything. Disneyland Custodial used to cover everything on stage and backstage at Disneyland Park, including the offices. And we would go anywhere. If anybody would question, what are you doing here? Oh, we're checking the restrooms, or we're doing, just nobody, people usually didn't. And before, I think it changed a lot with the resort expansion. And I think 9/11 changed a lot of things. I mean, used to, if I needed to get somewhere in a hurry, I would take shortcuts, through merchandise stock rooms, for example. Nowadays, they would be so worried about theft, things get locked up with codes and, access codes and things like that. You're not supposed to go, you're restricted as to where you go. With the Haunted Mansion, we would go in there after the park closed and just, make sure it was cleaned as much as we could. But night crew's going to come in and do the heavy cleaning. But we would go through there and, at the time we didn't have smartphones. So there were a lot of pictures we would have gotten if we had.
Oh, yeah, but, for sure.
I took some pictures with a film camera, and that's the one that, is included, where I'm right there at the in the cemetery saying hi to the dog.
I wonder if that dog has a name.
I'm a geek. I'm a nerd, but I'm not that much of a nerd. I know. I'm sure the dog does.
I'm sure he's got a nickname. He's got to.
Yeah.
If anyone out there knows, and we have a couple of listeners that worked at the Haunted Mansion, I'm gonna have to dig on that because now I'm curious.
Yeah.
Lynn, did you have any questions or anything you wanted to talk about? I feel like I've been asking all the questions.
No, it's interesting. I know a lot of the answers, so I'm like, well, I want to ask this, I want to ask that. No, I keep forgetting them on the show.
Yeah, you act like we work together.
Yeah, it's like you know each other.
Yeah. Ken and I met at Disneyland, and that's kind of how our friendship formed. But I didn't start till '98, so that was 8 years later.
Just it's a little like a newborn,
Yeah. So there's a question. How did the two of you meet? Yes, at Disneyland, but what was the actual bumping into each other the first time you guys chatted?
Well,
I think we were both in trouble, and we were waiting for the supervisor to come over. And
I thought you called me I thought you called me a name, and I said, "Are you talking to me? Got a problem?
You got a problem, buddy?"
I think we were working in the area, and we just worked in the same area a lot, where you were the lead, and I was just a cast member there. And then I think we both started talking about. We noticed that we had interest in history and stuff like that.
Yeah, because some people working there just couldn't care less.
Yeah.
It's their job. They don't want to spend any time there more than they have to. They don't care about the history. They don't care about any of that stuff. But we did. We liked spending. How many times would I clock out and then I would come back around and go into the park, just for fun,
And the cast member events, I had mentioned last week how we went to see the Sherman Brothers. So they had these special events, and only people like us would want to go to these type of events. So that was something else that we would notice each other at. And,
Yeah, the Sherman Brothers did a presentation at the Team Disney Anaheim building 4 cast members, and
Yeah.
they played some of their songs. Somebody I knew named Pam would sing the parts and that was an incredible experience. Getting to talk with the Sherman Brothers and see them perform and stuff like that. I mean, that was just amazing stuff that I definitely. I worked at the park 5 years after I had to. And that was one of the reasons, was those perks.
Are there any other ones that you can think of off the top of your head that were like just incredible experiences that you're just... I mean, it's hard to top the Sherman Brothers. I understand that, seeing a private performance with them. But anything else that you can think of that was kind of similar?
I would have to pull out my book and go reading through it, because I think we included them in the books.
Perfect.
Well, there was one. I actually, after I became a cast member, I got to go on a walk along with Bruce Gordon. At the time they were trying to overhaul Tomorrowland, and got to go on a walk along with him and some of the guys as they went through and were kind of pointing things out to each other. And it helped that I was a cast member by that point, not just a civilian that they needed to, because I could meet them on property as opposed to them having to get me in somehow, Yeah.
So to kind of build on that, so we know that you met Bruce and Tony when you were a kid, but it sounds like that relationship kind of continued through the years. I think that's, again, just...
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't. They tried to get away from me, but I wouldn't.
You just kept finding them.
Yes, it did. It did. Yeah, it continued.
That's very cool. I just keep thinking back on like what an impression you must have left on them as a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, for them to then you guys kept reconnecting because you worked at the parks and all sorts. I just think that's really, really neat.
Yeah, that was, they were just very kind, and it was great whenever, sometimes I'd be working and one of them would be working, like they would be checking something out down there. I was like, oh, hello, hi, how's it going? And all that. It was great to see them whenever, and things continued. Got this email one day that said, Tony Baxter is going to have a window dedication. Please, this is from guest relations, and they said, please respond if you want to be there and how, because apparently he gave a list of people to them.
Oh, yeah.
And we responded as quickly as we could. Yes, we want to be there. And so we got to be there in the audience, seated for his window dedication.
Wow.
That was and then afterwards, we hung out, we went around and did attractions with him.
Yeah.
Being escorted by a suit and a plaid, and that was great. Getting to go around, walking around the park that day with Tony. And there was another Disney legend too. I think one of the who am I thinking of? Is it Beaumont? I don't know. I think it was one of the voices. But yeah, hanging out with the Disney legends.
Well, and I mean, how incredible to be able to ride attractions with the Imagineers that built and designed them. I mean, that's just a whole different level, because I'm sure they're pointing out things that maybe you didn't know, or telling you little bits and pieces. It's just a different experience than experience it on your own, and that's amazing. Again, core memories, lots and lots of core memories.
Definitely.
That's amazing. Super amazing. So another thing, so we haven't talked about this yet. We talked about your time at Disneyland. We've sort of talked about the podcast just by poking fun at your relationship with Lynn. But let's talk about the fact that you're an author, too, of 2 books now. We've got Cleaning the Kingdom, and then also Cleaning the Kingdom Night, Day, Past, and Present. So tell us, how do you go from working at Disneyland to becoming a podcast host to becoming an author?
Well, I've long wanted to write a book, but I don't think it would have happened without Lynn being my co-author, or me being his co-author.
I was a pest. I had to pest him. Ken, we got to get this done.
He had to do the management on this thing. And,
There you go. Yeah.
And so, I mean, he had me on the podcast. He wanted me to become his co-host, and I did. That was great. And then he said, let's write a book. We should get the book written. And I really thought, everybody talks about how great Disneyland Custodial is. That's long been something that Disney's touted. It's long been things guests have recognized, but nobody had ever explained how or why Custodial was so good. So we decided we'll explain it. We'll tell the Disneyland Custodial story. I mean, it'd been decades and nobody had done it. And plus, we'll talk about our adventures along the way. So we explain how, and we talk about, all the strange events and all the funny things and, that we got involved with over the years. And I thought, do we really have enough for a book? And then we ended up with a book that was like it's over 400 pages, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first one. And then we had to come back and do another book. But yeah. And because it's an unauthorized, it's affectionate, but it's unauthorized. So it doesn't attack Disney at all, but it's honest. There's stuff in there that if it's an official Disney book, they definitely wouldn't have included, but we did.
Because why not, right? The thing that's so interesting, and Tag would say this if he was here, is a lot of people, when they think of custodial in a theme park, just immediately think of kind of like the ick part about the job. But the thing that you both did so well in this book is you highlighted everything other than that, and you just kind of really opened everyone's eyes to like everything that custodial is. It isn't just cleaning the restrooms and doing the not so fun, it's not all the ick stuff. There's a lot of other things involved too. And that's like, if Tag could work at Disneyland, he's like, I 100%, like, you made him want to be custodial at Disneyland. That's how cool. He's like, I didn't realize how much freedom they had, all this kind of stuff. So I just think it's so interesting how you took a position that a lot of people would have maybe been like, I don't know about that, but you made you brought it more to life and more realistically what it is and all the cool things that you get to do.
Thank you. There were people who look down on it. A lot of times you'd get people like in the college program or whatever, and or some young person would get a job doing it, and their parents would be upset about it, and it's like, this is beneath my child. It's like, I don't think it's what you think it is. I mean, we contain all of the really disgusting stuff in the first book. We call it Chapter 5 stories because they're in Chapter 5. It's not one of those books that you have to read straight through.
Sure.
Each chapter is basically self-contained. So yeah, and then you see there's a lot more to it than cleaning up after the horses on Main Street.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot to it. And then also your newer book, Night, Day, Past and Present. That one of the two is my favorite. So Tag's favorite, I think, is the original, and my favorite is the second, because the history of the department was fascinating. Lynn and I kind of talked about this last week, but I had no idea that there had only been, 2 managers in the history of custodial, like since Walt was there. Like that's incredible.
Yeah, that was amazing. Was the history and the legacy of it all. And we wanted to include more of that in the first book, but we couldn't get cooperation from certain people for the first book.
Yep.
And then once they saw the first book, they realized, we see what you're doing. Yeah. And they contributed. They came on our podcast. They contributed to the second book. Yeah. Because once they saw what we were doing, we're not doing something that's negative,
Right.
Nothing bitter, it's overall positive.
Yeah.
Realistic and honest, but positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book and the podcast opened up doors for us to interview other people because, like Ken was saying, that someone saw the book and then they said, "Oh, I want to be a part of that." And I think people listen to the podcast and want to tell their story, so it just kind of escalates, just more and more, which is great.
It's great. It's great getting the different perspectives from different. Sometimes for the same events, we're getting a bunch of different perspectives on what happened. Like I always, if anyone was working there back at the time, I always asked them, were you there for the Yippee invasion of Disneyland? And we get their perspective. So
to kind of talk on that, it's interesting that you say that because I never, you always think that everyone has the same experience of an event, which is obviously not true. But you kind of, once you feel like, oh, I've heard the opening day of Disneyland story, so I don't need to ask, people that were there necessarily what their experience was because, everyone knows that the ladies' heels were sinking in because the asphalt was hot and all that stuff. But it was actually the first Disneyland event that we went to, and somebody in the audience asked Bob Gurr what his experience was the first day of Disneyland, and that his answer totally changed my thought process on asking people basically the same questions because the experiences can be so vastly different because his memory of opening day is unlike anything I had ever heard before. So I just think that's so interesting.
Definitely.
So with Splash Mountain recently closing, was there anything that you did to kind of, celebrate since you had such a long, build up for you? You followed that so closely. You had such an amazing first experience with Mountain. So how did you say goodbye to Splash Mountain?
Well, we have maintained a friendship with, I like to say, the Baxter siblings, Tony and his sister, who is an artist in her own right.
Oh.
And unbeknownst to me, I had a milestone birthday coming. I knew I was having a milestone birthday coming up. but unbeknownst to me, my wife secretly was communicating with Tony about it. And because I would never ask for this for myself, but she did. She asked for, she goes, can we make, can we give Ken a birthday present and make his last ride on Splash Mountain really special? Now, Bruce Gordon has passed away. He left Imagineering and he went and helped open up the Walt Disney Family Museum, working for the Disney family. And then he passed away suddenly. So couldn't do it with Bruce, but Tony agreed with my wife and plotted for this. And so about a week beforehand, because they wanted me to know with a little bit of advance notice.
Sure.
My wife and kids revealed to me that you're going to Disneyland on your birthday, and you're gonna take your last ride on Splash Mountain with Tony. And I couldn't believe it. Like I said, it's nothing I would ask for myself, but she did, and we did. So my family of four, we met up with Tony. We did lunch at 1901.
Wow.
We went into Disneyland and did a bunch of things there, and including Splash Mountain. Took my last ride. I gave you a picture of that. Yeah. Now Tony was waiting toward the last day to take his last rides.
Yep.
It was all over social media that he was there. I knew they were going to do that, but I wasn't going to, I wasn't coming back for that day. But we did a whole bunch of his attractions at Disneyland and more, and then had dinner at Club 33.
Come on, what a day!
Yeah, I was suffering. I tell you, I was just, it's a rough life.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have to stress that is not, that was it was based on decades of a friendship.
Yeah.
So it's not something that Tony does.
Right.
It's like, ask Tony if he can do these things for you. No. He's very approachable, though, in the parks. If he's in the park, provided he doesn't have to get anywhere at a certain time.
Sure, yeah.
If he's just walking through casually, if you see him in the park, don't be too afraid to say hi. He's a fan himself.
Yeah.
He never stopped being a fan of theme parks and movies and Disney. And so just say hi, especially if you have anything to say about whatever you're looking at the time, maybe he'll share his thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What an amazing last.
That was one of my best birthdays ever. That was,
I was going to say, that sounds pretty hard to top.
hard to top. Well, I did propose to my wife on my birthday.
Ooh.
So not the same birthday, but it's like, okay, now might as well propose.
Yeah.
No, I proposed to her on my birthday. That way she couldn't say no.
There you go. There you go. Wow. So I have to ask, because obviously this final ride you would have had an attraction photo of. Did you happen to get an attraction photo of your first ever Splash Mountain ride, or was it probably not?
They did not have they didn't have the pictures back then.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When did the pictures start?
It wasn't right away, but it was soon after. There was a press photo of Michael Eisner riding the attraction, and some people tried to say that was the inspiration.
Oh,
but I don't think so, because I think they'd started taking photos on the Viper coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and then I think Knott's Berry Farm started it on their Timber Mountain log ride, and I think I remember Disney taking a look at that and deciding they were going to add it. And at first, I don't know how it ended up, but at first it was a major moneymaker for the park. It was like supposedly like the third biggest merchandise. The Emporium, I think at the time, was number one, but it was like they were making so much money off of it, selling those pictures. And this is before, you wouldn't download it. You would actually get a printed out picture.
Yep.
But no, they didn't have that originally. Sorry, I go off on this tangent when you ask me these questions, but
no, it's totally fine.
They didn't have the cameras back then. That would have been incredible, though.
Yeah.
I
was just thinking, how cool would it be to have framed your first and the first and last rides on that attraction? Basically the first day and basically the last day. You know what I mean? That'd be very cool.
Yeah.
But it'll live on in your memory.
The last ride was probably my longest too, because we got stopped right before drop 2, and I thought for sure we were going to be evacuated. But surprisingly, they kept.
I was going to say with Tony.
Well, surprisingly, they kept the music going. They kept the show lighting going. They made announcements periodically that and it was funny because in the front of the log, our group got split up. So in this log, it was my wife, me, and Tony, and there were a couple of other people that we didn't know in the front of the log. And it turned out to be a mother and her son, and we were sitting there waiting for the things to restart, and she goes, "Oh, this is my son's favorite ride." And I said, "Is it?" I said, "Well, guess who you're riding?"
Yeah, do you know who's in this log with you?
The co-host of the SweepSpot.
Yeah.
No, I said the guy behind me is the guy who came up with the idea originally.
Oh,
so they were thrilled. So when we got off the ride, I wouldn't have done that if I knew he was always happy to say hi to the fans. Mm-hmm. So when we got off the ride, they were like, oh, and they took pictures with him, and thanked him and everything. And that was great,
Well,
cool.
And what a cool full circle moment, because you met Tony while you were a kid that was a fan, and then you got to kind of, introduce another young fan to Tony as well. Like, what a cool kind of interesting coincidence and full circle moment. Plus, it was your final goodbye to the attraction too. Man, that's cool.
Yes.
That is amazing. Well, just in case people didn't listen or pay attention or forgot last week, where can people find the podcast, and find your books?
They can find us at thesweepspot.com. Sweep, like instead of sweet, it's sweep. So thesweepspot.com. Our podcast, our books, our information is there. You can find us on, social media. We're on Facebook. If anyone wants someone to do their voices, I did. I did the audiobooks for our books.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Then did all the technical work on that, and I did the voice. So, if you're looking for someone to do voices, I could maybe do that. I do have a day job, but yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Ken, for hanging out and telling us your amazing stories, especially your Splash Mountain memories. That was really cool. That was the first time I had heard those. I'm sure others that listen to the SweepSpot have heard them, but that was really cool. So thank you for sharing those with us.
Thank you for listening and having me on this fine show.
It's okay. I'll be the only weekly tier without an answer. Make sure you send your questions to Producer James or Producer Vern at trivia@DLWeekly.net.
Welcome back to Trivia Land. How do you feel about how you did tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
Better than last week.
I mean, you left it feeling pretty good about yourselves, and honestly, I feel pretty good for you. So, should we find out the correct answers?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's shall. All right, your first question from a conversation that I had with listener Ruben O. Who is Fluffy, and where can you meet him? Both of you believing that was the large snake in Indy. The correct answer is the large snake in Indy.
Woohoo!
Yay.
I still feel like I cheated, but I'm gonna take the win.
Yeah.
Just because you happened to be standing there as I was having the conversation, that's not cheating. And your second question, submitted by listener Cooper C. In the attic portion of the Haunted Mansion, there is a replica of a Disneyland attraction as soon as you enter the attic. The replica is to your right and a little below the Doom Buggy. What attraction is this? Both of you very quickly answering the Haunted Mansion. The correct answer that I was looking for is the Haunted Mansion.
Woohoo! I think it might go
Yay.
downhill after this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well done on that one. Your third question, submitted by listener Donna S. What are the blooming pink springtime trees called in Disneyland? Both of you saying they are the trumpet trees.
Pink trumpet trees, thank you.
Sorry. The correct answer that I was looking for was the Tababuya tree.
Oh, I would have never guessed that.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. That's fun.
And to be completely fair, I did have to Google the pronunciation of that. Your fourth and final regular round question. Inside Flows, you have seating options spanning several rooms, including Doc Hudson's medical office and museum. There you'll find a display case containing the piston cups that were won by Doc. How many trophies are in that case? Teresa said 5 piston cups. Lynn said 3 piston cups. The correct answer that I was looking for is 3 piston cups.
Good job.
Yeah.
Well done, Lynn. And your bonus question tonight, submitted by listener Michelle M. What is the name of the ticket taker at Mickey's Main Street Cinema? Both of you saying that is Tilly. And the correct answer that I'm looking for is Tilly.
Woohoo!
Well
Yeah.
done. High fives through the Zoom call.
I'm impressed. We did pretty well.
Well, listeners, how do you think they did? How did you do listening at home? Do you think you've got that perfect question that you'd really like to hear asked? If you've got that great question, feel free to send that to us at trivia@dlweekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us, and we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.